Hello everyone and welcome on back to Dash Auto Repair. Today we're replacing the alternator on a 2008 Nissan Altima with the 6-cylinder. Yes, you have to take the whole bumper off. Yes, you have to drain the antifreeze. So let's get right into it. The reason why I'm doing this is because I've replaced the alternator already 3 times with Remans, and they all had bad regulators, every single one of them. So I highly recommend do not getting Remans. Get an OEM. So I got a used OEM from eBay. It was like $100. Started testing it and whatnot. Hopefully this bad boy works. So we're gonna get right into it. Join us. All right, and we're back. So the lighting is a little weird, but first thing we're going to start off with is putting up the hood. We're going to take off these fasteners up at the top. There's the 10 mil on each side of the bumper and some Phillips screws down beneath, and a couple 10 mils up here. But first we're going to lift her up and we are going to drain the coolant. Now, when you're lifting the car out, make sure you put a jack stand underneath it. Find a good point. And my emergency brake is also on. Let me double check. It's not on, so I turned it on. Alright. Also, I'm going to be replacing the power steering high pressure line, so I'm going to take off the wheel over here as well. Alright, we're back. So, I went ahead and jacked up the car, put a jack stand in, and now we're going to drain the radiator up the front. There's a little screw that you can use a Phillips to get up in there on the radiator and drain it. That's the easiest way to do this. So, underneath the radiator, you'll see a little cap. All you'll need to do is turn it. Already tidy, lefty loosey. And drain the radiator. That drain. Let the antifreeze drain. It's a very messy job, so make sure you have a rag around. Wipe stuff off real quick. Alright, so I'm going to loosen up some of these components here, but I'm going to open up the cap so more comes out. That way air is going through. Alright, while that's draining, I'm going to work on these. So like a couple 10 mils, and a couple push pins. Alright, so took off all these. Put a bucket on your stuff so you don't lose it. Alright. Pour yourself a bucket. Alright. There are some Phillips down below. You can use a drill or you can use a screwdriver. So on each side. Those are off, and you have to get the 2 10 mils that are on the sides. Pop her off. Alright. Now the bumper's going to be coming off, but remember to unplug your fog lights. If you have some. Okay. Put the bumper cover aside. Alright. I actually need to diagnose why my right fog doesn't work. But I'll have to do that another time. Okay. Take this piece off. And a lot of people recommend taking this off. However, the last couple times I've done this, I did not have to. I just left it. So we're going to go ahead and leave this bumper on, and we're going to focus on the headlights. A couple 10 mils. And she's out. There's one up here. Okay, so now we need to take off the airbox components, a couple 10 mils. Three 10 mils for this. Take off the tray. Well, I've left the tray, so let's leave the tray on. One hiding down here, need my extension. Alright, open that out, set it aside. Some people remove the tray, I just leave it. Got a couple more 10 mils. These 10 mils are holding the radiator hose on, the upper. Cool. So, we can remove the upper radiator hose and set it back here. We already drained the majority of the coolant. We have about 5 quarts, I'd say, in there. Set the line aside over here. Take this cover off because we're going to be needing to take off the O2 sensor line. And I'll bring the camera up here, actually, show you guys what I'm working with. Alright, back at it. Better view for you guys. So, we're going to be taking off the top because we have to get to the O2 sensor over here. At least the line to unplug, because we will be needing to take the front O2 sensor off. I put these two up here, right in the cowl. Take off the engine cover, set it aside. Looks like I need to replace my valve cover gasket, but get to that eventually and worry about it. Right now we're worried about this alternator. So first, what we need to do before we mess with anything electrical like this, we need to remove the negative terminal on the battery. So 10 mil, let's do that. Negative is removed. Back to work. Alright, so now we're going to unplug the O2. We're going to need to remove that because we have a heat shield down here that needs removed in order for us to finagle the bolt, the sliding bolt, out of the alternator. So I'm going to be taking the coolant system out. I'm going to set this somewhere else for the time being. Right there. I'm taking these out, so 10 mil. Foreign cars because everything is pretty much 10 mil. 10, 12, 14. Nissan has a lot of weird ones every once in a while, but for the majority, it's pretty straightforward, as others are. Actually, we're going to leave this attached and we're going to bring it from down here. I'm removing the upper radiator fill hole. That's what you want to call it. This thing has a cap on it, and it goes over to the reservoir. Removing that. Need to loosen it up a bit more. Okay, let's see more coolant falling down. Okay. Put the overflow and the cap away so we're safe. And the radiator is still draining. I will say this removes a considerable amount of antifreeze, so that way you do not want to get antifreeze on your alternator. The upper line, or lower, whatever you want to call it, is literally right on top of the alternator. Right on top. So you want to drain as much coolant out as possible so you don't contaminate the new one. And thus have to do all this crap again. Alright, so now let's take off the crash bar. Crash bar support is a bunch of 14 mils, I believe. Let's see. Or 12. Oh yeah, there's 13s. Go grab 13 mil. Alright, so it looks like the majority of our antifreeze has been removed. You can put the cap on if you want, which it looks like it's okay to do so. But first, we're gonna, I'm gonna put that cap back on the bottom of the radiator. So it's just a Phillips. And remember, the radiator Phillips screw is plastic. Do not strip it, do not over tighten it. Don't be silly. Alright, so now we're going to remove the coolant. You can either put it in a tub that you can reuse, or you can replace it with new. Alright, now it's time to take the crash bar off. So 12 mils, or 13s. Alright, crash bar time. 13 mil. Let's get to it. Set these bolts aside. Some people remove this. That's holding up the hood, but it's going to be dropped down just a little bit, as you can see here in a second. Now we're not taking this off, we're just kind of shimmying it down so we can get enough room to take the fan shroud out and get to the alternator. So keep it short and simple. No reason to take this entire thing off. We're going to undo all the bolts, and then we're just going to slide it down just a little bit. There's a total of 4 on each side. 8 total for both. Okay. Now, simply move it down. Now it's wiggled a little bit out of the way. Okay. Now, we have a lot more room to get the alternator out. So, there's no need to remove the entire thing. Don't put more work on yourself. Here we are, right here. That's where we need to be. Cool. So I'm going to take off this fan. I'm going to get a couple clips to get these connectors out. There's one. There are 2 10 mil bolts. that hold the fan on, the radiator fan it is. We want to take that off. The two 10 mils are at the top. And if you haven't done so already, please remove the negative battery terminal. We're working on an alternator. There's one. There's two. Okay, so now we can take the fan out. What am I doing? So much easier than needle nose. Okay. Alright. She just comes right out. No particular form or fashion. There's a couple things you gotta wiggle out of the way. Alright, once you get the fan out of the way, set it to the side. And here we have a crap ton of room. Science. Okay. Now you can pretty much see everything. We need to move this lower radiator hose now. And we need to move it over to the side. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that clamp. Let's get this job done. I'm not going to be able to fit these down here. Yeah, not going to. Okay, remove the old roller. There shouldn't be any coolant that comes out since we drained. Maybe like a couple drops, but nothing crazy. As you can tell, you probably can't see this, but nothing has dropped. Well, one little drop, but that's about it. If you want, you can get a rag and you can stuff it in there. I recommend that. Ourselves a little rag. Just gonna stuff her in there. The most important part is you don't want to get any contaminants in the coolant. So make sure you're using the right sort of cloth. Alright, now we're going to take off these, a couple of the other components that are in the way. We're going to leave the high pressure AC line connected. It'd be silly to remove something we don't need to remove. And that's the purpose of this video. You don't need to remove as much as you think. Okay, move the ground line, set that to the side. Okay, we're going to get the alternator line, electrical line. It is a 12 mil. These are always annoying because you get that stupid rubber flap, but seems to be going okay. off, I'm going to get my ratchet wrench. So much easier with power tools. Okay, got that off. Now we're going to remove the plug. Okay, the plug, like that. And it is connected to the AC line down below, but we're just going to leave it alone and we're just going to kind of tug it away. Perfect. Alright, so it's tucked away. Now you could remove this heater hose with coolant, but I have never had to do that. So now we're going to go ahead and take off the heat shield right here in the O2 sensor. So there's a couple 10 mils that are on the heat shield. Let's get the O2 sensor off first. This is what I use for an O2 sensor removal tool. They're great. I think this was 30 bucks from AutoZone or something for a whole set and a box. But this just slips into the wires and goes right on. Makes it easy. Alright, let's get that bad boy off. Okay, O2 sensor's off. You can do the rest with your fingers. So I pretty much just get it on and off with the tool, and the rest is all about feel. There she is. This is the one that does your air-fuel ratio. So this is a very important O2 sensor. Do not mix up the upstream and the downstreams. This is the upstream. They are separate. Okay. Alright, so now we're going to fix on the heat shield, couple 10 mils. Take off said heat shield, set it aside. Alright, now this is the fun part. After we get this part taken care of, you can loosen these if you want, but what I would do is I would release tension on the belt first. And what we need to do in order to do that is we need to take the wheel off on this side. And I'm also going to turn it as well. I'm going to turn it to the right so the wheel is out and I'm able to see everything in there. Alright, so we're going to take the wheel off. We're going to release tension on the belt, and then we're going to work on getting this alternator out of here. Let's get to it. Alrighty, just so you're aware, I had to take the wheel off. Then I also had to take off this plastic cover. It's just a couple, clips. So the tensioner that we need to release tension on the belt is right here. And as you can see, it's not a 15. It's probably a 14 or a 13. So just turn it like this, and that will bring it down and thus reduce tension on the belt, and then you can slip it off. It is in fact a 13 for the tensioner. Alright, let's get to it. So I'm going to bring it, pull this up, it's going to drop the tensioner down, and we're going to take off the belt. It's so much easier than the previous years where you had the screw thing up at the top and it was just so annoying to deal with. So here we go. Alright, so after you take the belt off, as you can see, the belt is off of the alternator. Now we need to take off the tensioner, the idler pulley that is right here, which is blocking the main rotator bolt on the alternator. So here's the belt. I slipped it off. Honestly, just set this to the side. Be sure not to mess it up or anything, so you don't have to go back to the store to buy any belts. So I put the alternator, or the belt tensioner down. Now I'm going to remove this, and it's in 13 mil. After you remove the idler pulley, make sure to grease this thing up because it's spinning at all times, and a lot of the noise comes from the idler pulleys. So like a high temperature grease would do just fine just in between. So I use this to help give me leverage on this in order to take it off. But now we have access to that bolt right there on the alternator. We're going to take it off. We're going to take the top one off, then take this alternator out, put the new one in. So that bolt is a 14 mil, and I typically loosen it from this side because on the other side there's something that stops it and basically holds the bolt in place, so you could release it from here. And then up top is a 12 mil. So let's get to it. Alright, battery died, but if you're this far, we loosened that bolt right there, which is a 14. So I just took a 1/2 inch and removed it. It's pretty self-explanatory. Then I come up here, and there is a 12 mil right there, and that is what we need to remove. My guy, we got to remove that. So once we remove that, we can wiggle the alternator out, and we basically come out the top side like this, because look, we have a lot of room because the fan is removed. Alright, and sometimes I remove this top bracket as well. I don't know if you can see it, but we're going to remove that, so it's just more 12 mils. So let's get to it. I'll put you over here in the stand. You probably won't be able to see much because the sun is at a beautiful angle right now, right against the camera. So it's a 12 mil up at the top. Alright, got it. Another 12 mil if you want to remove that bracket, which I recommend because it helps aligning it. Alright. On there. This is the bracket holding the alternator power line in place, and also helps with the alternator guiding it. Okay, so alternator bolts, put those in a special place. And let's remove the other one. If I can get my power tool in there, please. No. Alright, the alternator just dropped, like not out from its spot, but dropped on the rotating. I'm just going to kind of tuck this. Remember that the AC compressor is also attached to this, so just don't go ripping it up, because you'll potentially mess up the components down below where the AC compressor is at. So now we just need to move some of these things out of the way and pull the alternator out. So we got to remove that bolt from the back. So what I do is, we took the heat shield off and the O2 sensor off earlier. So I stick both hands in between and I loosen the bolt because it's already loose. Alright, and once that nut is released off of that bolt, just kind of wiggle the bolt out. sometimes it's a pain. Sometimes you might have to tap it a couple times from the wheel well side, but there's the nut. Set it aside in a good spot, and there's the alternator. I just need to wiggle it out. I'm going to wiggle that bolt out. There you go. Alright, I was able to release that bolt and pull it out, and here's what it looks like. And this is the one that it rotates on, and this sits on the alternators, so that way you can tighten the nut over here, loosening and tightening. There's a little groove that it goes in. It's pretty simple to put back on. But so anyways, now we can remove the alternator from the vehicle. So I'm going to move a couple of these things out of the way. And we're just going to kind of shimmy it out. Careful not to hit the radiator. And here we are. Another alternator that was remanned from AutoZone. They're crap. Don't get remanned. Triple tested. Psh. This is the problem. Remanufactured in Mexico. Juan and Jose are messing these things up. Third one. Here is the used replacement. Stated as working. Saw the vehicle that it was on before it was pulled, and doesn't look like there's any coolant or anything in there. But there were no battery lights on or anything before I purchased it. So let's slap this bad boy in and hope that this is the last time we have to do this. I'm going from the top. Alright, I'm going to wiggle it on, find the holes, if it's not obstructing anything, it is. Once we figure out how to get it out. Alright, so I'm going to wiggle this alternator in. Basically, once I wiggle it in, I'm going to slip the bolt through. Sorry for the loud. I'm going to slip the bolt through to the back and hold it in place. And then after I get the bolt all the way through where it can rotate, I'm going to attach the two bolts that are up at the top, the 12 mils. One little trick I wanted to share with you real quick. In order to get an alternator on that's a pain in the butt where it won't slide into the rear piece on the block, is get a prybar and kind of help pry it in there. Be sure not to mess up any other components when you're trying to pry it. You don't want to pry it too much, you just need a little bit. It's much easier to get a prybar to get the back side of the alternator on than it is to do it with your hands or even trying to wiggle it in. It'll work smarter, not harder. So now I'm able to get this bolt in back here, or should be able to rather, and then at that point I'm going to put the nut on, tighten her up. Alright, the alternator is on, the rear alternator bracket is on. We're going to tighten that nut on there real quick. It's a 14. I'm going to hand tighten it. So that way I can kind of hold the things on the side over here. But the new alternator is in. Alright. See if I can tighten the 14 mil from up here. Let's see. Alright. Well, I lost my socket. Get overboard. I'm going to tighten her up a little bit. It's kind of hard to you guys to see these backside ones, but she is tight. I'm going to tighten her up fully on the other side, but first I'm going to stick something in there to stop it from spinning. And I was unable to get it to go all the way on with my fingers. Alright, the back one is tight. We can still wiggle it up to the bracket. Alright. Let's see. Now we're going to get the top ones on. 2 bolts on from the top bracket, 2 12 mils. We're going to go ahead and secure the bracket onto the head first. Alright, tighten her up, then get your handy dandy Perching Rich power, do it yourself. Why bust a knuckle when you could bust a nut? Just kidding, that's a terrible joke. Alright, so now we're going to put the alternator on the bracket, top bracket. And this one's sometimes a pain in the butt, so you want to loosen up the top just a little bit. Sometimes it doesn't align right. Alright, so once you get that bad boy tightened, finger tighten it with your hands as best you can. Alright, we got it on. We're going to tighten her up. Okay. Okay, now we're going to tighten her up with the wrench. 12 mil. Make sure it's real tight. Oh yeah. I like it tight. Okay, top and bottom are tight. I'm going to verify the bottom is tight now, since we had to rotate it just a little bit to get up. I'm going to tighten it. Okay. Alright. Now at this point, we got all the bolts are tightened on the newer alternator, the replacement. I'm going to go ahead and put the pulley back on down there. The idler pulley. I went ahead and greased her up a bit, make her smooth. And that is a 13 mil. Alright, make sure you tighten it up to torque spec, which is, I believe, 44 pounds. Or tight enough. Okay. Now that the idler pulley is on, we could plug in the alternator side real quick, but I'm going to go ahead and put the belt back on. So, 13 open end wrench, and it's down over here on this side. Showed you earlier, it's the reverse process. It's pretty quick. Easy peasy. If you need to. Alright, so I know you guys didn't watch me do that, but if you took it off, you could remember what the orientation was of the belt. And the routing guide online could usually help pretty well also. So general, you know, mechanic stuff right there with the belt. So I didn't really feel the need to show you. Alright, so the belt is on. We're going to go ahead and plug up the alternator, plug in the connector, and I just noticed something. I have a wire that is a bit corroded and shot. I'm going to go ahead and clean that up real quick and fix it. That could be why my system is overcharging. But I'm going to blame it on the AutoZone Reman. Okay, so I'm going to fix this wire real quick and then I'm going to start plugging everything together. I'm just going to show you guys real quick. The yellow wire was disconnected and corroded. There's a lot of corrosion in there. So I'm basically just going to crimp these together. Electrical tape everything with Scotch 3M electrical tape, not the other electrical tapes. Those are crap. And then I'm going to pretty much wrap all these back together with electrical tape and connect the plug and connect the alternator cable. Alright, so I fixed the cable, Scotch tape and a crimper, 3M Scotch tape, electrical tape, that is. This stuff is legit gold. If you're an electrician, you know. Alright, so I'm going to get the alternator cable on, bolt that up. Then I'm going to get the connector connected, the electrical connector. Let's just finagle this little rubber boot. Sometimes it's a pain in the arse. And here it is being a pain in the arse. Alright, got it on. Just need to tighten it. Also going to get on my newly fixed cable. Ooh. Just in case. So it looks like it's stretched a little bit. I'm going to remove this plastic piece. Sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do with an old vehicle. Oh my gosh. Okay. So I got this off to kind of give it a little bit more slack on the actual alternator cable itself. It looks like there's some crumbs that got in to the electrical connector of the alternator. So I'm going to get those out. I'm going to connect this bad boy together. Okay, alternator connector is on. Now we just need to put on the nut. That is a 12 mil. Hopefully I can reach and do it with this. Okay, I'm going to tighten it. Okay, that's snug. I'm going to put the boot back over. Alright, so connector's connected, alternator's there. Looks pretty solid. It's not going to go anywhere. Alright, awesome. So, got the belt on. Got the back bolt tightened on the alternator. Got the two mounting bracket bolts on the top of the alternator tightened. Got the cable fixed. And that's probably what was overcharging the system. That is now cleaned, crimped, and taped. More newer wire loom. The alternator cable is back on. My neighbor wants to blow his yard at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, which is fine. Now it's time to put the heat shield on the O2 sensor. Let's see. You cannot put the O2 sensor in first. So we're going to do the heat shield first. Couple 10 mils. While you're down here, might as well verify everything else looks good. Alright. These rusty bolts on. Don't have your tetanus shot, do it. Other than that, don't get any other vaccines. Because the government's trying to control us. And if you believe that the government isn't, you're the problem. Alright, so my memory got full of my camera, but if you're this far, after putting the O2 sensor and the alternator back on, I put the lower radiator hose on. Then I kind of pulled the crash support up a little bit to get the fan on. Now I just got to secure the fan, button everything back up, and literally place everything back together. If you're this far, everything that I took off is in a reverse fashion. So I hope you liked the video. Like, share, and subscribe. Dash Auto Repair out.